It is the Tuesday review after Liverpool play Everton, go to Goodison Park and win by 1-0. Liverpool, the better side across the course of the 90 minutes. We'll have a chat about that, how the game played out. But the way we like to do this show is first and foremost discuss the approaches of the two managers in what they were trying to achieve at the start of the game and try to work that out before we move going forward. And Everton, Sean, interestingly, don't bring Barry back. Drop Funes Mori in for Jagielka. And apart from that, it's a similar sort of 4-1-4-1 that they were playing against Arsenal.
Yeah, it was interesting watching some of the pre-game interviews. Klopp was quite funny. You won't have seen it, but he was laughing, saying, they said, "What do you think of your first visit to Goodison Park?" And he said, "The grass is very long." Yeah. And then burst out laughing. And it was Ronald Koeman was quite honest and just said, "Look, we cannot afford to lose the ball in our own half with the way Liverpool press." So you got an insight into one manager who was thinking, we really want to play football. And I mean, it's not as bad as 96. Do you remember in 96 when it was raining and they just turned the hoses on? That Fowler equaliser, it was raining enough and they literally just had the hoses on even at half time that day. It was just crazy. It wasn't quite at that length, but the grass is long, stop us playing, and you get Klopp wants to play football. And Koeman was basically saying, look, we aren't going to be playing any football in our own half against these today, which you can understand to a certain extent. I think with the team selection, they've got the result and performance against Arsenal, so it's an easy one for them other than the Jagielka situation. And I think for us, I'm sure they had done everything they could to get Matip ready. I think it's interesting that I think we'd have been playing anyone else. Would we have seen Sturridge and Chan on the bench? I don't know. I think it's such a big game that they wanted them involved or available to be involved, I should say. So I think no great surprises in either set. I'd heard rumours that Everton had trained. I think rumours went around the city, didn't they? That Everton might play three at the back. I think there was a rumour that I'd heard that they might have been training with it as well. But I think that after what happened to Chelsea, I don't think against us he was going to take that risk. I thought I was made up if he did. That was the only thing with his selection was he tempted to go three at the back.
I wonder if in his ideal world that might be what he wants to play, but he knows that next time he goes to that, if he gets beaten heavily again, it's going to become a harder and harder sell both internally and externally to push along. And Liverpool, Paul, no Matip, doesn't get himself involved. Interestingly, from the Middlesbrough game, we almost follow the pattern, both halves really. First half, Origi started through the middle. Second half, pulling left a lot more. But it's interesting that we didn't start him left. We chose to start him up top.
Yeah. I think Klopp knows enough about this country now and probably knows enough about Everton and what to expect going into a game like that. That you're going to have to earn the right. It's the old cliches, isn't it? You're going to have to earn the right to play. And he was probably thinking, and we've talked about this in the past, and you can debate it at length. What's better? Because Origi is the physically bigger, stronger player out of him and Firmino. But I mean, there's a good argument, isn't it, that Firmino's a much better hold-up player. His touch is better. He's clever at that sort of thing. And for all of Origi's physical attributes and his strength, he didn't hold the ball up at all well yesterday. And I think obviously that they're knowing that the first 20 minutes is going to be a physical battle. Maybe, I don't know, it'd be interesting to know whether Klopp was surprised by just how much they put into the first 20 to 25 minutes. Because it was, I mean, even at the game, it was noticeable, wasn't it? We were there, and I think we're all in our separate little pockets around the away support saying, there's no way they can keep this up. There was just no chance. It was a great start by them, and in fairness to the likes of Origi, very difficult to get into a game like that. I think you almost just have to take a bit of a hit and take it on the chin and know that you've just got to get through that period and wait for them to burn themselves out a bit. So yeah, there was no surprise for us in the team selection, I don't think. And interesting what Sean's saying about Sturridge and Chan as well on the bench. Klopp actually made a bit of a reference after the match that they'd only had a couple of training sessions and nowhere near the intensity they needed to be really to be involved. So I don't think he would have done. I don't think he would have risked them if it wasn't a derby.
I think for Koeman, I mean, great to see what you two guys think. What would you have done if you were in? Because I think against Liverpool, if you're Koeman, he's got two choices, and I think he either does the Burnley Swansea-esque kind of tactic of hit them hard, get the goals, hang on for dear life, but you've got to get the goals in a very concentrated time period. Or play dead. See how Liverpool play. They might not be at the peak. Just keep it at 0-0. The longer it stays at 0-0, there's more pressure on them. And then we look for our bits and pieces through the game, pick our moments, and I can look at the last 20 minutes of the game as well when Liverpool might have to open up a little bit more. Now, it's obvious now in hindsight, he went very much for the kind of Burnley type Swansea-esque element, but didn't get his goals in that period. I mean, it's easy with hindsight now, having seen him try that before the game. What would you have, if you were in the pub at the ground or outside the ground, what would you have said you're most worried about? Would you have been worried about an Everton blitz, or would you have gone, I don't want Everton to play dead?
I'd have been more worried if they'd have played dead, but I think it's hard to articulate exactly how hard that would have been for them to do.
Yeah.
I think that if it's not the Merseyside derby, if it's a side with Everton's players, with Everton's manager, in Everton's position in the table, having just come off Everton's win against Arsenal, but they're just like identikit team, you know what I mean? They're all playing in white and it's like a DAS advert. That side, the right thing to do would be to play dead. But it's the Merseyside derby, and to convince the Goodison crowd that we're playing dead and it's the best possible thing that we can do, and not end up getting tons and tons of grief through the game, having the crowd turn against you because you're not going toe-to-toe with Liverpool early, becomes really, really difficult. And the lads who came on the Friday show, Matt, talks loads of sense, and he advocated the soak it up, try and play as calmly as possible, and then just sort of have your big moments, winning the odd tackle and putting the odd block in. But that's such an easy thing to say. And, you know, as I say, and I think, as I say, if you can just take all of that out of it, Paul, then you can say that's sound and that's probably the best possible approach. Get to 60 and maybe do a bit of what United did as well, chuck that in there somewhere. But there's just not. I just think it would have been practically impossible for them with the way in which that ground is about this game.
I'm not looking to gloat. Well, actually, we are all here to gloat. But that says a lot about them, doesn't it? No, I think you're probably right there. If you're saying that could be the right thing to do, but they can't get their heads around that.
If Koeman's managed 3 derbies and won 2 of them and drawn 1, and then he does that, then they're all thinking, sound, you know, we're relaxed here. But that's not the environment that he's coming into. He's still coming into having to prove himself. And if he does that and gets done 4-0, I mean, he get absolutely battered for it. And, you know, right, you're thinking about all of that. It's such a massive call to make to go that way and not the way in which they did actually go.
I think it's fascinating, and you could do a whole show, and I've written something for the site today where I've talked about it, because it was the first time I've been inside Goodison for probably 15 years, and it's the first time I've been in the away end for a derby. I've always sat in with the Blues in the past, and it's not something you could do. It's changed a lot in 15 years, and these are all hypotheticals, but I think it would have been interesting to see how Koeman would have approached that game if it was at the start of the season, before he'd been exposed to the craziness around Everton. It's mad. Like, we were talking about this before the game and having a laugh about it, but it's the type of thing that when he's in talks with the chairman and he's being sold the Everton project, and we all hate that word and stuff, but he's looking at it going, well, this is an old great club, they've won the league, they've got this new owner. But what the new owner and what Bill Kenwright aren't going to say to him in that meeting is, by the way, though, all the lads are crazy, you know, they're absolutely insane, and if you do things like have red on your Christmas tree, they'll all go mad. And it's not a joke. Like, I was looking at his tweets again from the other week about that, and you could see his response was a bit like, are you winding me up? And when someone went to him, someone's obviously had the word and gone, no, mate, you're going to have to take the red off your Christmas tree.
He's not renowned as having the greatest sense of humour, shall we say. Well, I've got all of his sessions from when he was at Ajax, and that sounds mad because there's not that many. So, like, literally, he had a good squad. I think Ibrahimovic was playing for him for a period there, and he is literally the talk of boredom mid-season to do with his trainings. They're good sessions, don't get me wrong, but there's not many of them. So the talk of boredom and Ronald being quite straight is it's not. It wasn't the funnest place to be, even though they were quite successful.
Well, this is where he's got a big, and this is why I agree with Neil 100% that I don't think he had any other choice than to approach it the way he did yesterday. And with the experience he has, I think he knows that as well. And I think his job, I've got a mate who's a City fan who I often refer to, and he talked about when they were first bought out and they were trying to change the whole mentality of this football club, and they knew it was going to be a problem because in their situation, their player of the season for the previous 3 seasons had been Richard Dunn, who was like the most glorious loser of all time. Like, my mate always references an FA Cup semi where they got beat, and his post-match interview immediately after the game was just a bit like, well, it's just nice to play in a semi, isn't it? We didn't really think we'd win, and he said, like, when Mancini especially came in, the very first thing he did was get rid of Richard Dunn, and people were up in arms. But he was like, he's a loser. He's an absolute loser. And he brought in an old Patrick Vieira to say, I need winners in my dressing room. And I think Koeman's probably learning very quickly that the whole mentality that's built up around Everton over the past 15, 20 years is going to take a lot to change. And whether he's up for the long haul fight and all of that is a completely different.
Yeah, well, there's another
discussion.
conversation. It's one for another day completely. But they've got a couple of injuries. But you take Seamus Coleman and Lukaku out of that team. It's been a long time since we've seen an Everton team, I think, that poor.
Well, that's the other problem, isn't it? Say he did choose to go the other way. What does he do? Leave Lukaku on the bench for the last 20 minutes? Ironically, that would actually go down quite well with a lot of Evertonians, which is mad.
I didn't realise, with one or two little injuries here and there, I didn't realise how poor a side they've got. You try and pick a combined team. You look at some of the games we've had this year, where we may have well got results, but there's quite a few teams we've played where I'm not sure how many Everton players again. You take Koeman and Lukaku out. I'm not sure the mid-table sides in this division how many. You look at Stoke even. Going into the derby, I'm always nervous just because I'm just nervous about it. But in reality, I mean, what you're coming up against there, it's not it's a long time since seen an Everton squad. I think that looks that poor.
They look depleted. I think it's the. Now that we played them, I think you can get to the side of a few of these sentences. That they've got the win they got against Arsenal's enormous for them. If they'd have got beat at Arsenal and then got beat by us, the next game's Leicester away and then it's Hull away. And then the next two homes, I think I'm right in saying, are Man City and Crystal Palace.
Ouch.
And it becomes quite difficult.
And they have a great record, Palace at home. I don't think it's certainly been difficult for them. Palace really do well against Everton.
I honestly think that it becomes a little difficult. So it's really important they got the win that they got against Arsenal because it just keeps the Wolves from the door a little bit and he can have a look at it and he can hopefully get himself a couple. He'll be desperate to get.
What would they be now? They'd be 6 points off relegation if they hadn't beaten Arsenal.
Yeah,
that run of games.
Yeah, I think that it's a really now we get to go into January, position of relative strength, add 2 or 3. There's loads of talk of Schneiderlin, and he'd make a world of difference to them. And Koeman's worked with him before, and Schneiderlin and Idrissa Gueye becomes a thing that you can build something around and go. That's a basis.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it goes from there. But yeah, I think that there is a bit of work that needs to be done. Nonetheless, though, the first half there, it's a half of 2 halves, and they do the thing where they put all the energy in the first 25. It's basically the first 25. It breaks down on the stats on the first 25, Sean, when you look at it, but it's very direct. If you're asking who's winning the battles, I'd probably say Everton are winning the battles at that point in the game. They're certainly winning the territory, but they create very, very little. And I think I can't work out if that's them being blunt or Liverpool defending well or both.
I think it's a combination. I think that Everton, the weakness in their wingers toiled and worked the socks off, but there's absolute zero quality from their 2 wide men. And I thought that Lovren and Klavan in particular, but the back 4 dealt really well with Lukaku and Barkley. It's the odd time Barkley gets away from Henderson. Where I think Jordan could have been a bit tighter to him, where the second balls and things, particularly when Lukaku was against Klavan, I thought Barkley was picking up little second balls, but just didn't have the quality, or had an off night, shall we say, in terms of what he actually did with it. From that, I thought playing in that role, his head just fell off. To be brutally honest with you, he had so many chances in the first half to hurt us and do something that he didn't do. It was incredible. But yeah, I thought they're blunt out wide, and I felt that the back 4 stayed really strong. I thought that in that period, I think the Liverpool's tactic was to play, and I thought the problem in that period was because of Liverpool's focus on playing. Firmino and Mane were dropping so deep into midfield to go, it's all right, lads, we'll come in and overload and we'll play better. It just meant more numbers in a tight pitch with the crowd up, and just meant we had even less out balls, even less diagonal balls, even less support for Origi as time wore on, because Firmino and Mane just kept dropping into those zones, and in those circumstances it is very hard to play through that. And I thought Liverpool's options were like anything. We've referenced Pep Guardiola on here before, where even his Barcelona team going away to Valencia would play long for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes because they just needed to beat that press and let Valencia punch themselves out a little bit. We looked like that wasn't an option last night. It was, if we need to play, and I don't know whether that's by design or just what the players did. I thought Mane and Firmino kept dropping in there to play, and you got McCarthy running around like headless chicken during that 25-minute period. Everton lost their shape loads in the midfield area, but they kind of got away with it because it was just 10, 11 bodies in a very tight section of the pitch, which meant we couldn't play through. And I don't think Liverpool looked to get into any fight or into any deliberate battle in that period. If we did, we didn't do a very good job on it. I don't think, because I thought that we wanted to play. and that Lovren and Henderson had a bit of ball, and they looked up, and Mane and Firmino were dropping in to try and get on it, and we were feeding it into midfield and engaging. We were allowing Everton then to engage, and then we have to respond, because all of a sudden there's a second ball to fight for, if you see what I mean, rather than going long and diagonal, maybe picking up the pieces and getting some territory. All the territory was kind of in our half. So I think we were dragged into a battle on second balls and things like that, but I don't think the deliberate aim was win the battle and then win the war type thing. I think we wanted to play, and that's why Mane and Firmino were dropping in to try and play. We've just you can't underestimate how much effort they put into that 25-minute period. I mean, you're saying what you saw on the ground. On TV, it was like I was in a WhatsApp group with my mates just saying we've just got to get to 25 minutes, half an hour. These are gone. Completely gone. And other than subs, they'll be gone second half. We've just got to stay at 0-0. But they never really looked like getting a goal. It was just we were poor, but fair play to them. It's very difficult to play football against the intensity of that first 25 minutes from them.
I think that there's a couple of really interesting points when I was watching it again today, because I was really low down in the lower Bullens, and it's really funny because I sit high up in the main stand for home games, and going from that perspective to the seventh row of the lower Bullens, you can barely see anything. But watching it again this morning, in spite of it being so intense and so frantic, and everything you're saying, Joe, so little space for everybody, something that struck me last night and then watching it again is we lack the cool edge that Klopp always wants us to have. It, and it's that balance, isn't it, of having that intensity and being in the battle and being able to win, but then as soon as you've got the ball, switching back to being cool and calm. And I think that's where we let ourselves down in the first half hour, because in spite of Everton putting so much into that 20-25 minutes, we still had a number of opportunities where if our passing had been sharper and better, we'd have got around them.
Yeah, it's valid, yeah.
And there was a few very clear passes out from defence where we've nicked it back, and they were just really bad passes. It wasn't like, you've missed that by half a yard.
There's a couple in Klein's direction.
Yeah, Milner as well hit a couple. Firmino was sort of, I think Firmino, it looks like he's still carrying something and he's sort of playing through, but if we'd have been a little bit cooler in that period when we got the ball back, I think we'd have caused them problems much earlier than we did. But, saying all of that, going away to Goodison and just getting through that period 0-0, that's the other side of it. For all of that intensity, I think the problems all sides face with us now. We've referenced this about the United game at Anfield. They didn't really threaten us at all. In spite of all that energy is sort of being expelled by them to keep control of us. As opposed to saying, well, we're at home, lads, we're going to go and score a goal in this first half hour. And I think that's where sides are a little bit stuck between a rock and a hard place with us. Because if you say, well, what approach are you going to go for? You're going to try and blitz us in the first half an hour and get 1 or 2 goals, or you're going to sit back and wait till the end? Well, what you're left with Everton there is, they blitzed us for the first half hour, but didn't lay a glove on us. All they did was stop us playing. So then once they've punched themselves out, they're all looking at each other thinking, we didn't even have a shot then, lads.
Yeah, that's dead right. I think fair play to Everton in one sense, in that they did play very direct, so we weren't able to engage our press and try and win it back off them. And although Lukaku didn't really damage us directly, what he did do was occupy Klavan a little bit and did enable them, if they wanted to try and pick up them second balls. I thought the only weakness in our side really was if Firmino's going to drift inside and look for the ball or try and give Origi that support, Wijnaldum and or someone else has got to get out and help Milner. And I thought Koeman was too good an out ball for them in the first period. And on another day, if Lovren and Klavan don't defend his crosses, and if Milner and a couple of others and Henderson don't get over to him as often as they do, we could easily be talking about Seamus Coleman setting up either some better chances for Everton or even a goal. And we'd be talking about that a hell of a lot more. Just because the end ball or finish wasn't there doesn't avoid the fact, I think, that it'd be easy to criticise Firmino, but I think Firmino's given that licence to do that, and especially when he's in that role on the left. And I think Coleman was too good an outball for them, and he did show a clean pair of heels a couple of times. And I thought Lovren and Klavan did really, really well with some last-ditch defending in the area, which sort of protect us. Other than that outlet, they had nothing, did they? There was odds and sods that dropped with Barkley that he didn't do anything with, but really it was the Coleman threat down the right-hand side and Liverpool's shape really meaning that was allowed. And like you say, that it's weird. It's a bit like having 3 rounds to knock someone out, but not really throwing any uppercuts or hooks or anything. You're really busy with loads of body shots and jabs and stuff, but you've just knackered yourself out without being brave enough to throw the big shots. You know, they didn't throw both full-backs forward. They tried to keep the two midfielders in there, didn't they? You know, they wanted a solid pair in front of the back four. So they kept 5 back, didn't they, all the time? They never really fully went for it. And I think, like you were saying before, maybe that's just the Everton psyche with these games and the record in these games, just that little bit, I don't know. Or whether that's just Liverpool now. We've seen this with a number of teams that are just scared to open up because of the threat of Liverpool on the counter-attack.
I think that's the problem, isn't it? You mentioned this in the show while I was away about us at Middlesbrough and how brave you have to be to play football the way we played in that game, and the way we're trying to play football in every game. It's brave. And the problem with the way Everton approach that game, and every other team that comes up against us, if they want to beat us, they're going to have to show more courage. They're going to have to, when they're having that 25 minutes, go, well, we will push our fullbacks up then. We'll roll the dice a little bit in this period and try and get that uppercut in and try and have a goal.
There's something in the thing that Sean always says, I think, Paul, which is that when we score, it's the worst's happened, and then everyone pulls themselves together and starts again. And I think there is a slight issue. I think we are struggling a little bit at times when we go 1-0, even 3-1 at Bournemouth, is that it makes everyone's mind up.
Yeah.
If you're West Ham then, and you feel like you're getting on top, for instance, when we go 1-0, you think, you know what? We feel like we're getting somewhere now. We might as well just absolutely hammer it. And we'll have a big 10, and we'll come out the other side, and maybe, just maybe, we've got something. And in West Ham's case,
and
it's
what's
2-1.
the alternative as well?
And what's the alternative? We're 1-0 down, so why not? We feel like we're growing into the game. We get a bit of momentum. Let's just take every chance we get at this stage, and then come out the other side. Bournemouth's a great example. It's 3-1. They decide to cheat with the lad Fraser, who, by the way, came on for them against Southampton and was nowhere near as good. Yeah. I'm behind him, and he was nowhere near as effective when he came on. But
I wonder how we tested after that game.
Yeah, and then it's all of a sudden there he is, and it's absolutely flying. And I think that you just get to go, you know what, we're giving it everything we've got. And why not? Because the worst happens. And the thing about this goal yesterday for Everton is, obviously, when it happens, they're absolutely exhausted. It's done. It's 94 minutes. They know it's the winner. Everyone knows it's all over. There's no opportunity then. And I think that's why sides are conservative against us, but they're not necessarily as conservative, and you get to see it when they're down, because they think, you know what, we might as well just lash the dice and just see what happens, and you never know, we could turn them round.
In mitigation, and they didn't do this to stop him, the somewhat worrying thing, which is a big compliment in a way, the first 25 minutes, we talk about Coutinho, we talk about Sturridge, we talk about moving Firmino out the middle. You compare Middlesbrough and then the first 25 minutes of last night, you saw the difference taking Adam Lallana out of our game makes in a big way. The way that Everton played with the ball meant that Lallana, he couldn't press. Lallana couldn't play the way he wanted to. He tried to get out and give Origi more support and shut the centre halves down, but they were literally hoofing it that quickly that Lallana couldn't get out to them. So you saw in that first 25 minutes, Lallana basically wasn't involved at all. And then with the ball, we weren't able to get him on it. There was too many bodies in there, even by his unbelievable standards this season, and that was a thing that we maybe can't underestimate, that for 25 minutes was probably the poorest we've been. Everton though did probably put an hour's running into that, and they're not a team geared up to do that anyway. And on top of that, our best player, our fulcrum for when we're at our best, look at Middlesbrough as an example. So even in the first half at Middlesbrough, a lot of players pinging sixes for me, but Lallana was just unbelievable, both halves. It's just everyone sort of moved up a few gears second half for me in Middlesbrough. You saw against Everton, we couldn't get Lallana involved in the game, and it's a very different Liverpool team when he's not involved with without the ball.
You get to see that more in the second half, but just to cover the first half of the second half of the first half, Paul, is, it's not all Liverpool, but it's practically no Everton, and this is where that sort of dropped off a cliff. I think that Origi should probably do a little bit better with the best move of the half. What struck me, and looking back at the game and then looking back at the heat maps as well post, was we become a little bit of a 2 and a 1 in midfield. It's not an accident, I don't think. 25 to 45. It's not Henderson, Holden and Wijnaldum and Lallana playing ahead of him. For that period of the game, we've got both sort of Wijnaldum and Henderson are sitting quite close to the back four, quite close to one another. And simultaneously, Klein, crazily, is the Liverpool player with the most advanced average position. When you look at those heat maps, which I didn't see coming, he's not involved very much, but he's
higher than Mane originally.
He's higher than Mane, yeah, and it's you don't see that one coming. I didn't really get the sense of that watching it either, but when you look back at it, that's what that's showing you there.
Yeah, it's interesting with stats and average positions though, isn't it? I wrote an article which always raises a few questions with people who really like stats, but averages can be misleading.
I think Everton's setup allowed us to do that.
Allowed us to do
I think Lukaku decided. I think Lukaku played on Lovren and Klavan in the first 10, and I think he makes a decision around the 10-minute mark. I'm sticking on Klavan. I thought Lovren was outstanding all night, but I think Lukaku made the decision to play on Klavan. So the problem is, because he's made the decision to play on him, how much space did Lovren have? And that's the reason Lukaku was not interested in engaging in, but Barkley didn't want to leave Henderson, and I think that's why, what you're saying about stats, Klein can bomb on, because Lovren's just got the ball and he's walking into space, so Klein has to bomb on and give the width, because Lukaku's going, I'm happy playing on this lad, thanks. And Barkley's going, oh no, I've been told Zick on Henderson, so he's looking at the others going, who's going to come and press Lovren? And there isn't anyone to come and press Lovren, because they're looking after Wijnaldum or Lallana or whatever, do you know what I mean? So I think that's why it distorts it a little bit, because I think Everton were lopsided because Lukaku's gone, I'm standing here.
Well, that's always the thing that you don't see, do you? In a lot of stats is all of the other variables that took place in the same game that influence this. It's never as clear cut as you can see from a lot of stats.
You see on Lukaku's heat map, he's basically stood on Klavan.
Yeah.
It's the exact zone.
Which is not surprising, is it? I mean, I think there's some stats on sort of aerial duels won, which is another one I always think is interesting, because you can, on pure numbers, it looks like Klavan doesn't win as many aerial duels as Lovren, or he doesn't if you're just going on cold hard facts. But if Lukaku says, well, I'm going to stand in front of Klavan, just knock the ball at my head, and Klavan challenges him for every one of those, chances are he's going to lose every one, because Lukaku's a big lad.
Or at least 50%.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Lovren's marking thin air virtually, because he's got no one up against him,
I think that period of the game is, even when you're watching it again, it's almost noticeable, the complete drop off. All of a sudden, we've got a bit more space. All of a sudden, there's a moment around the 30th minute, which is it's about 4 or 5 minutes before Origi's chance, where I thought an interesting stat to see would be the correlation between the number of Cruyff turns we do and how well we're playing in games. Because there was just a 5-second period where the ball came into Lallana in the centre of the pitch. He does a little Cruyff turn and rolls away from his man and gives it to. And it was interesting. The commentator on LFC TV said in both of these instances, Lallana had it, rolled his man, did a Cruyff, gave it to Firmino. Firmino had it, did a Cruyff, rolled his man, put it out wide. And on both of those, the commentator on the LFC TV went, Lallana's got the ball, can't afford to lose it there. He hasn't. He's given it to Firmino, can't afford to lose it there. He hasn't. And that's when we're at our best. Yeah. When that happens, because all of a sudden, there's 3 or 4 of their midfielders out the game, and we're away. And 5 minutes later, we have that move that leads to Origi's chance, which he probably should do better with. But that was the little period where you can see then. That's when, and I think they're always the moments in games where, especially with this team now, because they believe so much and we believe them, that's when you're starting to look at each other in the ground. Their fans are looking at each other, our players are looking at each other on the pitch, their players are looking at each other on the pitch going, right, this is that period of the game now, is it?
I hadn't thought about this, because I just thought Everton punched themselves out, but looking at it, it's quite interesting. I'll tweet these out so you can have a look at them, because they are mad in that I think Koeman's getting so much ball and Firmino's not tracking him. And that sounds like criticism, but I don't think Firmino's supposed to track him, if that makes sense. Lukaku thinks, I'm going to play on Klavan, and then you've got Everton's 2 best players starting to move towards the right-hand side of the pitch. So then all of a sudden, when Liverpool are looking to play, Everton become a bit more lopsided, which means Lovren's got that additional space. So Lovren keeps getting the ball and he keeps driving forward. It means Klein's getting forward. And you could argue that Klein and Mane, that little partnership with Lallana buzzing round, they're probably our best 3 players starting to grow into the game and to play, I'll tweet out, it's funny because I've just been looking at it. It looks like Everton have got 10 men, and I've just seen Aaron Lennon is literally like font 0.5. You can't see him. It looks like Everton have 10 men for 20 minutes. That's a long period of the game, and I think that shows that Everton have geared themselves to our left side, and we're just winning it back and sweeping around the other side of the pitch, and they're not involved, and we start to grow into the game. I don't know what you thought from the ground. It'd be really interesting to see what you think. I thought Wijnaldum in that period was absolutely fantastic. It's just when he gets to the penalty area, the final shot or the final pass, even the pass he makes to Klein for Origi's chance, I don't think it's the greatest ball, but up until that point, from 25 minutes on, I thought the second half as well, I thought he was up there with Lovren for man of the match. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, in the ground, do you think people don't notice that when they're watching all?
There was a lot of Wijnaldum talk coming out. Loads and loads of people were onto it yesterday. Exactly the performance that he put in. And the other thing that I look out for as well, and look out for in those periods is, and I think it's again, if you want to say correlations, odd correlations possibly, length of time their keepers taking over goal kicks. Their keeper's not thick. Their keeper knows they need a breather and then they need to get to half time.
Yeah.
And Stecklenburg takes a goal kick on about 40. And he must have took about a minute over it, and the reason why is because at first 20 he couldn't get it out fast enough. First 20 he couldn't shift it out of his feet fast enough. It got to 40 and he really dwelt on this goal kick. And I'm watching that one, and it's what you're talking about there as well. And also the other thing to notice is he's putting all the goal kicks the same side, the same thing that you talk about, because he's aiming in the general direction of Lukaku, and then you pick the bits up. And so all of this sort of stuff adds into what's happened now in the football match, which is Everton can't now get a foothold back in it. Liverpool have got the entirety of a flank to play with. They're not involved in that area of the pitch. Liverpool are finding all of this room and simultaneously they're going into the game. The thing that surprised me, and I don't know if it surprised either you, I don't know if it surprised you, Paul, but in the context of all of this, I when I'm watching their keeper take ages over the goal kick, I'm thinking, could just be saving themselves here for a big start to the second half. That we could well get, not another 25, but we could well get another 15 of Everton piling the pressure on. And they just couldn't get near it. I thought that we came out absolutely on it on one level, but on another level, and I don't know if it's as simple as the Barry change means that they haven't quite got the McCarthy whirling dervish legs in the middle of the park, but they just sat there. And it's from the period of time from half time, arguably up until when the keeper goes down injured, you're just waiting for the Liverpool opener.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I was more confident going into yesterday's derby than I've been in years, and it was partly because I expected them to do the high intensity first 20 minutes, and I couldn't get out of my head Koeman's comments in the summer about how unfit they all were. And he's obviously had the pre-season to work with them and get them fit, but he started the season complaining about their lack of fitness and saying we're still not fit. And we know from comments our own managers made how difficult that is to fix during the season. So I'm thinking to myself going in, well, their best case scenario here is he's got their fitness up to 90% of what he thinks it should be. They're going to put everything into the first half hour. Where do they go from there? We're already fitter than you. Before we start, we're fitter than you. So our lads are on the pitch looking at each other going, these have burnt themselves out. And that's what, when I was in the, and it could have just been because I'd had a few drinks and I was naively super confident in that game. I was, when they started to drop off before half time, I just kept saying to Ben Johnson, who I was standing next to, they got this is gone now. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. And interestingly, we'll come on to the second half, obviously, but I was shocked actually watching it back how early in the second half Firmino's chance was.
Yeah.
In the match, it seemed much later. It was on the 49th minute or something like that.
You should pay double for your tickets, Jono, next year. I mean, you could auction them, mate.
There was an Olympic champion near him. It is that the keeper delay does hurt our momentum, but we're so dominant, Sean. I mean, at that point in the game, we've become so dominant without hitting the heights of Middlesbrough. Really, it's quite an interesting sort of form of dominance in that it's not pulling them apart and pulling them open. It's just that they've just got no way of getting out at this stage.
You do get coincidences, but I mean, is it a coincidence that against Borough, bit of an iffy first half from Liverpool, and we came out in the second half of that game like it was a different day and a different game? And again against Everton, alright, we probably came into it a bit more against Everton towards half time than we did say against Borough perhaps. But again, that first 15 minutes after half time, that was like a different Liverpool, a different game. It could have been a different day. We as you say, the only thing missing was that goal, similar to Middlesbrough. And I was a bit worried later on in the second half that when we did the review show about Borough, we were saying that because Borough aren't geared to chase a game and aren't as good as many other teams, that we didn't pay the price for not killing someone in that 15-minute period of domination, because it actually continued to 20 and 25 minutes and we were all right. My concern was that either Everton would wrestle that momentum back, which didn't actually happen. The breaks with Henderson and the keeper completely killed momentum, adrenaline, the build-up for me, and I thought we were really sloppy after that period, and Channon Sturridge just brought a bit more sharpness back into it, and I was gutted about that because I thought I'm going to be doing this show with you guys and thinking about that it's this ruthless problem, and we spoke about that after Borough, didn't we? Even against Watford, we should have hit 11 or 12. And I was in the pub with one of my mates watching Borough, and it's all he was saying to me, and I think he's right that you can be ruthless at 4-5-0 up, and you get your iron then, and you take that into games that you really need it for. And it's mad, we're second in the league, but I don't think we're that ruthless generally. And in that 15-minute period after half time, we could a bit more. We're getting not one. We could absolutely kill that game. We were that good in that period. I think we have got to improve on that, because there are 15-20 minutes in games where we should be not just taking games away from people, they should be absolutely buried. And we have lost the league title before on goal difference as well. And that it is something. And
it's a factor in 13-14. It's a massive factor in 13-14. It's in everyone's minds all the way through. I agree with that. But it is the manager mentions post-match. I think Firmino's perhaps a slight factor in this as well, Paul, that he's clearly not still back 100%. He has a very good second half against Middlesbrough, but maybe it just suited him. He got motoring. Last night, you didn't feel like you don't feel like you got a 7 out of 10 game, and I think the manager all but acknowledged that post-match, that at the minute he's doing a job for him, and maybe if everybody was fit, it might be that Firmino's currently getting a little break to heal from whatever knock it is that he's dealing with, and it could just be a cumulative factor of 3 or 4 of them, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and second half that you were watching him, and by the end he was really struggling. And in fairness, well, I mean I've talked about Firmino before, and I feel a bit responsible actually, because since I said he was the most underrated player in the league, he hasn't been in form at all. So I take some responsibility.
I have not been back to Goodison since 1994. Sorry, literally like curse and things like that. I'm banging to that. I literally stay away from the place. I was there for Ferguson's debut, you see, and if there was ever a derby when you think you're going to win 5-0, it was that one when they were bottom of the league or whatever. So after getting done 2-0 there when we should have won, they're that bad, I've decided I'm never going back again. I never have. So I'm putting our record against Everton recently. I'm getting a bit of
credit for that.
Yeah, a little bit of credit.
Yeah, you should. We should all do our role. I'm never going to speak highly of any of our players ever again.
Yeah. Never say they're underrated or anything.
But I mean, in fairness, this is one of the things I was saying. Like people stereotype obviously Brazilians and the fancy dans and all that. He's one of the toughest players you'll ever see in your life. I just love it. I love the fact he's got these lovely shiny white teeth and all these haircuts and all the rest of it, and he's just dead hard, just really, really hard. And you saw it. I mean, there were still some flashes last night of when he was having a little, he'd just have a little 30-second spell where he's got his touch in.
How would you sum up his game, Paul, last night? 'Cause, glass half full or half empty? On one hand, you could say, if I was making a case for, I could say, well, he's very unlucky not to get 2 goals.
Yeah.
He's really worked his socks off. He's battling, he's fighting. Where even in the second half, he's doing a better shift down the flank for us. He's really tracking some needless fouls, but the desire's there. And on the other hand, I could say a bit of a Dirk Kuyt touch, a bit of a Dirk Kuyt sort of performance in a weird way. Just never knowing what you're going to get. 1 minute, some inconsistent passing and touches and movements, and missed a big chance at 0-0 that we could be talking about a bit differently now. I mean, I would use some of Klopp seemed to suggest after the game that I know he's not right, but he's just far too important. He has to be in this team, and it doesn't look like he's getting hooked, even if he's having, say, a bad night. I mean, how would you sum up his performance?
I think you've just nailed it with Dirk. It's a Dirk Kuyt performance. If you'd never seen Roberto Firmino play before, and you saw that game in a derby at Goodison, I think you'd be fairly impressed by what he's done. His work rate, his desire, the way he's getting stuck in, and if it's not for Koeman's great interception, he gets his goal. I think his finish for the
could have a hat trick actually. Now you come to think of it, because there's one off the corner.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. So it's hard to criticise him on that level, isn't it? The only reason there's any criticism of it is we've seen the heights he hits when he's on pomp, and he's obviously a couple of steps below that right now. But I think he's still putting a very solid away Goodison performance.
I think second half he's helped because Origi does more of his football off the left.
Yeah,
and I think that again.
I thought Koeman was terrified by the way of him.
Yeah, couldn't
he was giving him 2-3 yards at times. He was absolutely terrified of him. I mean, Koeman might have had his legs going himself.
No, I think that Koeman was suffering. He was struggling a little bit. He was tired. I think that there's something in there with Origi moving left that I think freed Firmino up a little bit. It's no surprise that that's when he begins to get chances. If nothing else, if the other stuff isn't coming, if the quality of the finish isn't quite there, I think he's now for me fallen into the category of a footballer who needs a goal. Firmino, in that a lot of what I've seen him do right the way through the whole calendar year. Think of Crystal Palace away, the 2-1 where Benteke scores the penalty to win, where their keeper miskicks it to Firmino's feet, and most other players would try and slot it straight away, whereas Firmino's got the composure to read the entire situation, know he's got 5 yards to move into, and then just pass it around him. I think if that dropped to him at the minute, he might just take a shot.
Yeah.
And then he might miss, but he might go in or he might miss. And he's now, for me, fallen into the category of a lad who could just do with, and I think this is part of the responsibility of playing through the middle. I think, actually, Andy's just walked back in, he's producing the show, and Andy actually said to me during the game, of one of his chances, if he scores against Borough, he probably just scores there. I think it's one of the ones where I think maybe the one that Koeman gets off the line or blocks in the end, not quite off the line, but off one of them, that's what he says to me, and I think that there's a bit of truth in that. I think at the minute he could do with just getting one, get it in the back of the net, and then that's sorted a little bit, and then we just sort of move forward, and you get back to the player that he is. The subs is interesting. Well, no, the other thing that's interesting in the second half is Everton only complete 63 passes and didn't have a corner. And that tells you everything that you need to know. They're playing at home in a game that you think that they'd want to win, and to only complete 63 passes, Sean, is under the circumstances is pretty mad.
It's like chicken and the egg, isn't it? Like they've shot themselves out that badly, and a point probably suits them as well. Against the fact that I've underestimated how much better we are than them. To be honest with you, I haven't seen that much of Everton this season, and from what I saw last night, I actually have some sympathy for that manager. There's a pretty big rebuilding job there, so I think you got the combination. We're so much better than them that we move up a couple of gears. You've also got the combination that they are absolutely shot. But I mean, I can't remember a derby at their place where in the second half, I could have been in goal for us last night. Genuinely, like they were talking, Carragher and Neville were saying after that, justifies the manager's selection in the goalkeeper change, and you don't know what confidence the rest of the team have got. But being honest, pretty much any of us around this table could have probably kept goal second half, and we'd have still won the game. Do you know what I mean? So it's mad. I think what can you say? It's a combination of everything. I do think we played well, but they were shocking.
I think that's one of the surprising things, and this is a general football fan impatient thing, and I turned to Jono middle of the second half and said, I can't really see what Koeman's doing here. I'm not sure what the plan is.
He was unlucky with the subs though, wasn't he? Like I was trying to make it's difficult because I've got proper fans, chimpanzee jumping out in a derby game, but I was trying to make some notes during the game for the show, and I was thinking at half time, how does he freshen this up maybe to get more legs on? And then you realise McCarthy goes off, then he's got the keeper. Yep. And then you go, I make me final sub. I've got no more. If anyone picks up a knock, aging team knackered.
I don't mean just even in the specific game though. I mean sort of generally speaking. Do you know, if you when Klopp comes in, even when Rodgers comes in, Martinez comes into a squad. Guardiola, perfect example now. Things aren't going that well, but you know what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
You can see, and he can say to the City fans, look, this is what I'm trying to do, lads. The players all know what I'm trying to do. There's going to be some bad results along the way. I struggle with Koeman and Everton, and maybe this is all part of the bigger thing we were talking about before. Maybe he came in thinking, well, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to pass the ball. That 63 passes stat thing just wouldn't be a thing because we're going to pass the ball. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to build from here. And maybe just as the weeks and months have unrolled, he's gone, well, in this game, we just have to run dead fast and see what happens.
Sky showed some good stats before the game where they looked at Everton against the top six. And bear in mind, Everton are unbeaten at home against the top six. You've got Arsenal, United, and the difference in their stats
Spurs as well, first game of the season.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And the difference in their stats is absolutely enormous. Whereas, like, you look at them against the bottom 13, say, it looks like they are trying to play a bit more of a possession game. But against the top six, it is Wimbledon, Everton-esque Dogs of War type stuff. So, like you said, I don't think he's necessarily putting a philosophy in. I think he's maybe just crisis managing at the moment.
Yeah,
He's got, I need wins, I need points.
Yeah.
We've got Burnley at home today, so we play this way. I've got Liverpool, we have to do the other. I think you're right now you say that. I don't quite know what he's trying to do. I can only think he's trying to crisis manage his way from window to window. Yeah. It'll be interesting whether with his signings and stuff, it'll probably tell a lot.
Whether or not it gets clearer. Didn't have a corner either. Just want to talk about the introduction of the subs, and I've joked on this on all the shows, but I'm going to keep saying it, which is there was a pretty clear get them 15 minutes plan. Which was what I was shouting on 75 minutes. I haven't forgotten that there'll be 8 minutes injury time. That's a great example of why Jurgen Klopp is far, far better at being Jurgen Klopp than I could ever dream of.
I love the fume, by the way. That I've seen loads of fume about us scoring an injury time when Barkley and Baines smashing their keeper created the injury time. Which probably, when you think there's been, was a 5 subs during the second half and a goal. So there's 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I think 8's kind. It's probably 10 or 12, by the way.
Yeah. We were.
I thought, me personally, I was going, I think there'd been five subs at that point in time, and there hadn't been a goal. So there'd been 5 subs. So I'm thinking, right, straight away, there's got to be 3. And I'm thinking the Barkley, Henderson and the keeper thing, because the keeper was twice, remember?
Yeah.
The keeper's gone down twice. I'm thinking I want 10.
Well, I
was a bit disappointed with 8. But that's probably just because I wanted to win and we were 0-0.
I was presuming the worst and thinking, and I actually said I'd take 6.
Yeah, it's Mike Dean's a 3.
Yeah, I was thinking I'd take 6 here. I'd just take 6. But you then when you see Sturridge and Chan, and I think Sturridge comes on, I think he does really well. And if we're talking about the Daniel Sturridge here, he probably wouldn't have been risked if it wasn't the derby. Then he's done even better again. Chan also makes a significant contribution. It's good to have those options, Paul, and you get to see Sturridge force the issue, find Liverpool's way home. Mane anticipating best, but what you also see in all there is the exhaustion of Everton. Mane and Firmino are both reacting quicker to what's unfolding in front of them than any of those Everton defenders are at that point, and Mane's nimble and gets there, but if it bounces the other way, Firmino probably turns it in.
Yeah, there's a few points in it, isn't it? I think it's probably the first game we've had this season where we want Liverpool to shoot more than they were. We've criticised them a lot this year.
Oh, the goalkeeper couldn't move. Much. He was hopping on one leg and we still didn't put the ball in the box.
I was furious about this. We spoke about it after the game. There was a show a few weeks ago while I was away where people were talking about what one player would you have back who played in the past. No, I couldn't believe no one said Xabi Alonso, because in games like that, in the first half when there's no space, Xabi would just be going, give it to me and I'll give it back to you. Give it to me, and we'll just keep Xabi Alonso. Just have it on the influence maps. He just be his name. He'd just keep the ball basically. And then when he sees the keeper, because when I'm watching it back today, I was like, in that 5 minutes where the keepers literally can't stand up, which it looks like we're trying to create an opportunity to have a shot, and I'm watching it going, just have a shot. Xabi Alonso would have got it from 40 yards out and gone, I'll just hit it. Just hit it. Hit it towards the corner of the goal and see what happens. And it's funny that we've gone from now, and this is the thing with you know better than we do on this, but this is the balancing. Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? You've gone from, you're trying to drill these players to stop shooting so much, and then you get to the point where even Klopp's at the side going, shoot lads, and they're like, but you told us, what are we trying to, and that's the problem. But I think on the Sturridge point, we were literally saying, when you're saying about the 75 minutes and stuff, I'm literally standing the ground going, just get Danny Sturridge on and tell him to have some shots. Just get that. And just watching that moment where he picks it up out wide, and it's that moment, and this is what we were doing much better second half and the end of the first half, is keeping the ball that extra step. It's all right, you don't need to pull the trigger and watch, I'll just keep it an extra step, and it's just getting that extra yard. And he knows, because he's a goal scorer, it doesn't matter if he doesn't connect with it perfectly. Get the shot away, get the direction right, the rest follows.
Well, it also tires Everton out more as well. Do you know what I mean? Because through the course of that half, with us not having the shot, they've just had to keep moving. Every time we move the ball, they've got to move. I think, remember how it feels for Everton as well. When the referee blows his whistle for that sub, all the Everton players get a breather and they have to look over and go, oh, Emre Can and Daniel Sturridge are coming on. Yeah, and everyone in their ground gets the chance to look at Emre Can and Daniel Sturridge coming on. And I think even Ronald Koeman, when you're in the technical area, if you see a team at your ground and you're 0-0 or you're drawing, and an opposition manager's bringing on serious artillery at that stage, it's hard not to go, okay, we need to back off here, a point's decent. It's hard not to have that mentality. No one, I don't think, goes, right, let's fight fire with fire, especially when he's played his cards on his subs and the game is the way it is. And I think for the Liverpool team, they're also looking at that sub, and Jurgen Klopp doesn't need to say anything. That is sending out a serious message to his team that you have got 15 minutes and this is 2 subs to go and win this game. And I think, little things with Sturridge that I think there's loads of stuff he doesn't get the credit for. Like, you look at him and Klopp after the game, and the reaction between the two is fantastic. Every time Sky cut to the Klopp in the background, Sturridge is sat next to Trent Alexander-Arnold, talking to him, chatting to him. Sometimes looks quite serious, other times having a laugh and a joke. And that's a senior player, do you know what I mean? If that's Steven Gerrard or Adam Lallana, I think people pick up on that and rave about that and talk about his role in the dressing room. People aren't talking about that with Daniel Sturridge, because people either love him or they seem to be like quite anti-Daniel Sturridge, And I genuinely think, for me, I'd put him in against Stoke. In fact, I wouldn't. I'd tell him you got the next 10 games. And I don't care what happens to you after them 10 games. You start in the next 10 games and you are putting us top of the league. Chelsea do not win this league. I'll bet anyone any money they want, Chelsea are not winning this league title. My fear is that City click. And if Chelsea can put 11, 12 runs together, and the best they can do against us, injury ravaged with 1 billion away games against everyone, the best they can do, 6 points. Sorry, we're not doing our job if we will reel them in. I've got no doubt about that. My only concern is the City click, and the likes of De Bruyne and Sterling and Silva and Aguero. they've got some serious match winners that if they click, they can put a run together, and they're in and around Chelsea like we are right now. And I think Daniel Sturridge, for me, you saw last night, even in a game when nothing's happening or whatever, he can take games away from people. And I would just say, you got the next 10, Daniel. Even if I get you for an hour, you got the next 10. Don't care if you have a bad game, whatever. Go and take this league title away now. You go and put us top of the table. He is good enough, honestly. He is good enough on song with this Liverpool side. You give me 10 games of him for an hour each game, decent nick. We're top of the table at the end of that 10 games.
Yeah, I probably agree with most of that. It's funny, I'll have to mention this because we've obviously got a very similar view on the subs and things, and the article I've done today basically talks about, which so spoiler, save some of you reading if you listen to this first, but basically talks about where the side everyone fears now. Chelsea are Chelsea, and they've been Chelsea and all the rest of it. But they've not scored lots of goals in recent times. They've got this 3 at the back. People are looking at them. They're starting to try and figure them out, I think. But we've got this thing about us. We've got Klopp that everyone envies. We've won in so many different ways now. And the one thing I was saying was missing from this side, and I've been saying it for a long time now, is the Man United thing of wearing a team down and wearing a team down and wearing a team down, just so that they get to the... How often? It feels like my whole adult life I watched Man United and I'd see that they were getting beat 1-0 with 10 minutes left. And I remember my mum used to send me text messages saying United are getting beat, and I'd send her a message back saying they'll win 2-1.
Yeah. And
they would. And I remember that Sturridge chanting. I've written about this today. I've got this vivid memory, and I can't even tell you who they were playing against, but in my head it's every game they ever played. And they were playing a team who were getting a draw. It was like Everton last night. That's what it was. And then the ref signals there's going to be a sub, and it's Sky's cameras, and Sky's cameras are behind the players coming on, and the 2 players standing side by side coming on are David Beckham and Roy Keane, and you can see past Keane and Beckham to the players' faces on the pitch, and the opposition faces it's just like they all look at each other and go, for Christ's sake, like this, we've got to deal with this now. Yeah. And it's that thing of like, lads, you might think you've only got 10 minutes left, but it's going to be the longest 10 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
And now that we've done that thing, it's like completing the collection. Now, what you do now? Because we go, okay, well, now we've got our lads back. And then we get Phil Coutinho back. And then we give Firmino a few days off so Getty gets back in full nick. And then Matip comes back. And all of a sudden, when we're getting to the end of a game, instead of Klopp looking at his bench and thinking, I've only got 3 kids to bring on in attacking positions, he's going, cop for that. Here's Danny Sturridge and Emre Can.
Lovely upbeat stuff before Christmas. Sean Rogers and Paul Cope. Sean Rogers is saying he's taking any bet on Chelsea. I'm not going to let him take any at all. I'm going to look after all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much to the pair of them. I hope you very much enjoyed.
They're not winning it.
I hope you very much enjoyed this Tuesday review.
They are not winning anything.
Back more of this sort of stuff next week.